Alright, so we're going to start with 9.2 now. We're going to do the same thing, some chapter review problems. These chapter review problems will also be on page 610. So go ahead and work on these problems. We're doing number 43 and number 47. Now these have to do with 9.2, and the first two things that you got introduced with in 9.2 were the product and the quotient rules. And all they mean literally is that when you have two variables or two factors inside a radical, you can split them up into their own radicals with the same root. Same exact thing for quotients. If you have a value over another value with the radical sign, then what you can do is you can split it up into their own individual radicals and make it a fraction as well. Okay, so pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Now when you're solving these problems, there are a couple of steps that I want you guys to know and I want you guys to keep with you so that it can make solving these problems a lot more simple. Okay, so we're going to start with this one. Simplify the radical expression. Basically simplify it as much as you can. Alright, so here we have the square root. Now remember, we don't write square root, but this is the square root. We don't write that 2 there normally, but what this is saying is the square root of 36 u to the 5 and then v squared. So what we want to do is first of all split up all of the factors, alright? And that's pretty much the first step that you should always be doing, is to split up the factors. Okay, use the product rule here, and you're going to split up all of these factors. So here we have a factor of 36, and we have a factor of u to the 5th, and a factor of v squared. So we're going to go ahead and split those up, and we're going to turn that into the square root of 36, right, which is times the square root of u to the 5th, which is times the square root of v squared. Okay, now we can solve this pretty easily for most of them. Okay, the first part here, square root of 36, we're going to go ahead and simplify. We know what the square root of 36, 6 times 6, right? If we're going to split that up, we can. 6 times 6, right? We know that's 36. The square root of 36 is going to be 6. So that part's pretty easy. We're going to skip this one right here, and we're going to move on to the next easy one, which is right here. The square root of v squared. We know what the square root of v squared is, which is basically the square root of v times v, and we know that the square root of v squared is going to just be v. Okay, now a quick side note on this. If you look in your books, for most of these problems, when you are working with the square root of something squared, it will tell you that the answer should actually be the absolute value of v, and that is technically correct. Okay, so keep that in mind. But for our class, for MCR, we are assuming that all of these values that are squared are positive. Okay, so we are assuming positive, and that's just going to take the load off a lot for our class purposes. Okay, when you get to college, when you do other courses, you may have to actually write it as the absolute value of v. This is correct. Okay, but we are assuming that each one of these v's here is positive. Therefore, the square root of both of these v's has to be v. Okay, we're assuming that it's positive because you know that v, the square root of v squared, could be v. Alright, v times v could equal v squared, or negative v times negative v could also equal v squared. Okay, but we're assuming the positive one only. Okay, so whenever you have something like this, whether it's a v, a u, whatever it is, go ahead and assume the positive and then just knock this absolute value thing out. Okay, so just assume v. Let's go ahead and let's move on to this one. Now this one's a little bit more complicated. Now you notice that for these, I split up whatever value I had into its factors. Okay, so here v times v, here 36, 6 times 6. Okay, we're going to do the same exact thing for this one right here, and that's just a good way for us to be able to visualize what's going on. So here you see we have u to the 5th, so we're going to split it up into 5 different u's. Okay, now this is the square root of u to the 5th, so this is kind of just like a neat trick for us to be able to do. Since it's the square root of u to the 5th, I'm going to group all of the factors in here into 2's. Okay, since it's the square root, we're going to group here This is 2u's, 2u's, and this one's left out by itself. But that's okay because we're going to rewrite this now as the square root of u squared, which is that, times u squared, which is that, times u. And we know that the square root of u squared, we're assuming it's positive, right? We are going to go ahead and just simplify that, and this is just going to become, these two are going to cancel out, and this is going to become u. And then same thing over here. The square root of u squared is just going to become u. But here we still have the square root of u. There's no u squared to cancel it out, so this is going to stay as the square root of u. Now if you notice here, we have 6, we simplified. We have this right here, we simplified, and then we have the v that we simplified. Let's go ahead and put them all together, and I'm running out of room, so I'm going to go ahead and write it up here, okay? But we have the 6, we have this, and we have the v. Let's put them all together. 6 times u is going to be 6u squared times the times the square root of u. We're going to leave the square roots at the end, okay, any radical at the end, and we're going to put that v right there. So this is your final answer, 6u squared v square root of u, okay? We're going to use the same exact technique with this problem. So go ahead and pause the video, do this problem right now, and I'm going to work it out right now. Okay, so same exact thing. I'm going to move a little bit more quickly because I don't want these videos to take too long. Same exact thing. We're going to split this up, all right? Once we split it up, we're going to put them over here. We have the cube root, and please, 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 always write the cube root. Always write the root, okay? Because what will happen is inevitably you'll be working this out and you'll split them up, okay? And watch, you'll split them up and you'll forget to write the cube root there, and you'll think it's a square root. Don't make that mistake. Always write the root number in there every step of the way so you don't mess up, okay? So we're going to go ahead and continue here. Here, we're going to split this up now. Now, here we have a specific case because 48 does not have a cube root. Okay, so we have to do something extra. Now, whenever your coefficient value does not have a specific root, right? So in this case, 48 doesn't have a cube root. If it were like the square root of 48, 48 would not have a square root either. Okay? So what we have to do is we have to factor this by using prime factorization. And the best way to do that, and I'm going to go ahead and write that note here, we're going to do prime factorization, okay, is that we're going to make a factor tree. So we're going to take 48 and we're going to put it over here. Okay, and we're going to make a factor tree. And we're going to start and we're going to split it up. When in doubt, divide by 2. So 2 times 24, and then 2 times 12, and then 2 times 6, and then 2 times 3. Now these are all the factors of 48. So guess what we're going to do? When we start writing out all the factors like we did up here, we're going to do the same exact thing. We're not going to forget that cube root right there, and we're going to do 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. And now I'm sure that you can see that we're going to do the same exact thing we did up here. We're going to do that down here. Let's go ahead and let's do this one now. The cube root of a cubed. Easy, right? We're assuming that it's positive. So the cube root of a cubed, those are going to cancel out. That's just going to be a. Okay? Now over here, very, very similar. We're going to break it up. Cube root b times b times b times b. Do this for every single time. I know it seems time consuming, but do it every single time, okay? Until you get the hang of it, then you'll be able to do it on your own, okay? But now, we're going to continue here. We have, let me get the marker. We have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Same exact thing that we did up here. We found groups of 2 up here, right? Here we have groups of 3, so it's a little bit different. Okay, we're going to get the groups of 3. So we're going to find groups of 3. Here we have one group of 3, and that's the only group of 3 that we have. Okay? So when we rewrite this, we're going to write it as the cube root of 2 cubed, which we know what that will be, times the cube root of 2 times the cube root of 3 times a times, and then same exact thing here. Let's find the groups of 3. Here we found that group of 3. The b is left by itself over there. So here we have the cube root of b cubed times the cube root of b. Okay, let's simplify. We can simplify further. We're almost done. So we're going to go ahead and just keep using the black marker. So the cube root of 2 cubed, we know this. Okay, this is just going to be 2 because these cancel out, right? Cube root of 2, cube root of 3. We're going to actually combine these two together now, okay? Because that's the most simplified form. We don't want too many radicals in the way. And the product rule tells us that the nth root of uv is the same thing as the nth root of u times the nth root of v. So that's what we're going to do here, okay? We're going to combine those two into the cube root of 2 times 3, which was 6, okay? I hope that makes sense. If you need another step in between, know that this is 2 times 3, the cube root of 2 times 3, okay? And then we went ahead and we combined it into 6. Now, another multiplication step. This a, we got rid of that one a long time ago, okay? Next step here, cubed and the cube root and the cube cancel out, so this is just going to be b times the cube root of b. Let's put all of these together now. We have our coefficients, okay? Coefficient always goes in the front, so that's going to be 2, okay? We're done with that one. Remember that the radicals always go at the back, so we're going to leave that there. We're going to put our two variables, 2a, b, and now we're going to include the radical. Now remember that this radical, let's go ahead and let's write it. We have this radical here, and we have this radical here. And we're going to put those two right here. Cube root of 6 times the cube root of b. Now we know that these two, we can combine them together because of the product rule. So we're going to combine them together, and at the end, we're going to end up with the cube root of 6b, okay, because we multiply them together, and then this is your final answer. And that's the first part of the 9.2 review.